I'm using it not often enough. So the gas is always leaking out. And it feels a bit like a waste, right? But this thing has meaning to me, if you know what I mean. There's a dragon on it. And I like it. And the question is, you know, should I just use it more? But what for? Sometimes I wish I could smoke more. But that makes you weak, right? You smoke a lot, it makes you weak. So this is Nak Champa. I've been told it's one of the better ones. I don't know. I just don't understand how you can produce these so cheap without feeling bad about using nature in such a way. Yeah, I'm just gonna see. All right, just a second. You see, I'm not very strict with a lot of things. And nor do I think that I have to be. I don't think I have to be very strict with everything that I do. But that's just whatever works for you, right? I realized that I have to deal with a lot of things in my life. And I also feel like when I'm too strict, I become very rigid, right? And when you become very rigid, then sometimes you need something to relax. And it's very strange because I really try to do everything by myself. I mean, I produce my own music, I make my own art, I write my own texts, and I also distribute them on my own. You see, I don't understand why people like NF, who claim to be super different from everybody, but ultimately they just do the same thing everybody else does. Because they say they believed in themselves, but then they have this whole team of people behind them. So in the end, it was more like other people believing that they could make money with them, right? I don't really like that. Because there's a lot of people like this out there already who say, yeah, I believe in myself. But in the end, what they went for was the money and not the I believe in myself. Because if you believe in yourself, right? So this is like the controversy. I don't know why I'm talking about this now. It's really strange. I don't really want to inhale this. I just want the smell in my room and to cleanse the aura a little. What I'm trying to say is, you know, this is just herbs, right? I'm just using herbs. This is sage tea. I'm not a fan of smoking that much anymore. Like, I'm trying to stay away from a lot of things, so this is just herbs. That's all there is to it. But sometimes I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm stuck in my chest. And then I feel if I smoke herbs, such as sage, then it opens up my chest. So also in the end, when I was smoking cannabis a lot, I was mixing herbs into that. But this is just herbs. I mean, I wouldn't smoke spices, right? I wouldn't smoke cinnamon or something. Although who knows, right? You don't know what it does. But to me, it's enough to simply just take herbs, whatever you like, right? I mean, you know, you don't have to give all your secrets to everyone. You know, you just say that it's herbs, right? I mean, I'm not promoting anything, it's just herbs. And then you simply check. But to me, this is not something I do every day, right? This is something I do once in a while. So this is just sage. And there's a lot of brambles and shit in there. So you have to put in the work and sort it out. And I don't know why today I've been trying to stay away from smoking anything for a while, but today I feel like I really need it. I also cleaned my room because it's important to do that once in a while. I dusted off my carpet and brought that outside. Put a new thing on this. The other one is down in the washing. I also said I want to try to not shower for a while. Instead, I'm just going to rinse myself, you know, under my armpits and my private parts. Sometimes, you know, what we store in the lungs is sorrow and sadness. That's what's being stored in the lungs, that where we like to sigh. Right? It's like an expression of sadness. I have a lot of sadness inside of me. And there's a lot of potential for sadness. I just have to open my eyes and look outside the door, like outside the window, and it already makes me sad because I'm inside looking outside. And the reason I'm inside looking outside is because, you know, that's the mission I feel like I've been given. that I have to do that for a while, to simply see what's on the inside. And then I'll just let life pass me by for a certain amount of time so that I can cleanse and purify and detach myself from the world. So this is sort of my cave, right? I don't really speak with anyone. I don't touch anyone. I don't really get into contact with many people. I just stay silent. And I do what I can to raise awareness. This is at the moment what I'm doing. And I'm trying to do it as best as I can, right? So I look outside and I realize I don't like this world. I don't like it the way it is right now. Because there's no nature anymore. Like, we've destroyed it all. And the nature we have left, we're still destroying that, right? And that's true, because nature is truth. And we as humanity, we're trying to get away from truth. So the incident I described to you that happened here with the people that call themselves my family, right? You know, that was about truth. The truth of people that think they are better than others because they have money and because they sold their house to the bank and got a credit. So this is how we are today. People think they are better than others when they have certain things. So you have a car, and then you say, that makes me better than others. You know, some people, they go to some kind of Shaolin temple to escape society, and then they become disciples. And then you think, well, it seems all a bit phony to me. Because, yeah, sure, they live there, but they also give me the feeling that they're better than me. It's not because, you know, I have a problem with such people that exist, but it still gives me the feeling that they think they're better than me. And I know that they think that. And that's the double-edged sword. You can either live in society or try to escape it. And that's, of course, you know, somebody who tries to escape society but still makes money from society hasn't really escaped it. But they certainly show a different way of life. But I also have the feeling that because you know it's still there, right? So when I sit in my room and I try to detach myself completely, I often get taken back into this, wow, it's still there. You know, every time I come out of meditation or sleep, I wake up, I'm in the same damn place. I mean, it's still like this. Why? You know, you wake up and it's still like this. And that to me is literally hell. So yeah, smoking herbs once in a while maybe helps me to forget that, but the truth is it's still there. So I'm not doing it to escape or anything. I'm doing it to accept that it is the way it is. For some people it's an escape. You know, I have to learn to accept that it is the way it is. That society is the way it is. And that as long as I don't learn to live with it, I will always be trapped inside of it. Because the trap is really in my mind. The trap is really in my mind. And that's why when we talk about psychedelics, that they can alter your consciousness, that they're psychoactive and all that kind of crap. Yeah, I don't like these words because they are distortions of the truth. Any word is a distortion of the truth because people can give their own little meanings to it, right? And I mean that. You know, you say something and then a person comes, oh yeah, but if you say it like this, then blah, blah, blah. I just threw away 3 books that somebody I knew gave to me. And these books are entirely based on stuff other people wrote. There's no experiences in there. Nothing. No, he just takes what other people write and then he writes something else with that. He doesn't really sit around making up his own mind, but his mind can take what it ingests and then do something else with it. And that's a problem because it makes you feel powerful, right? So going to live at a temple, when you come out of this kind of system, you think, oh, if I can do things better than others, then it makes me more powerful than them, right? Yeah. This is the general mindset of the Western personality, right? It's like, if I have certain things, I'm better than others. It's like having a car, an expensive car standing in front of your, expensive for what? For the environment, surely expensive. In terms of money, money is not existent, but in terms of environment, a car is very expensive. Like the cost for the environment to have a car is very expensive. And then some people have really big cars because they want to show what a man they are. And then the car is being owned by the company they work for. It's not even theirs. Like they didn't even work for it. But they still take the credit for it. Oh, that's my car. No, it isn't. It belongs to your company. And because you bought that house with credit, the house belongs to the bank. So, underneath all of this, there's you, who's trying to look bigger than he is by having a house that's really big. And then, it's not the problem of having a house. It's the problem of having a house and claiming it as yours and saying, this is mine. It's like the president wants to think that whatever country he's ruling, or whatever people band together and let themselves be ruled by someone, he wants to think that it's his country. But it's not, because the country doesn't exist, right? It's like money doesn't exist. It's non-existent. It's just made out of thin air, right? They just produce more money all the time. Money is non-existent. And so if you have this stuck in your mind that you are worth as much as the money that you have, then you're going to run around after money. And that's basically also the story of my life. That I constantly make choices based on, is this going to give me money? Because to me, money is freedom. Money to me means I can have my own place. And that's something that I want. But is it what I need? That's a different story. So, but I didn't really think about everything that I want to say in here. But the story, as usual, is just taking shape. So I just sit down and I just start thinking about the problem. Yeah, why does it have to go exactly my direction? It could go anywhere, the smoke, right? I mean, the smoke could go there or there, but it's going directly at me. And the question is if that is already some form of energy, because I'm in the room and I'm the one channeling energy, right? And it might be actually that the smoke feels drawn to that. Yeah, it's interesting. Of course, if your mind is full with opinions, it's very hard to allow such a concept to enter into your mind. Right? If your mind is full with concepts and opinions, then you cannot ever allow anything else in there. And that's of course where spiritual practices come in. This is also where psychedelics come in. That sometimes your mind is clinging and you don't manage to break through the barrier. It's like an obstacle in your mind, like a very firm belief system, such as money gives me value. It doesn't mean I cannot work towards having money anymore. I think having goals and the goal of having your own place, I think that's very important. But everything also works in its own time, right? So if I'm trying to escape this place, and all my choices are based on having money, then I'm going to be very uncomfortable for a very long time. And my lungs feel really stuffy. And that's why working with sage helps me. I really feel that. So the question is, what can you do to first cleanse your mind and to let go of all the beliefs that you have in there? Because you will have a lot of beliefs that have been planted in your mind in school already and in your childhood. Like these things grow like weeds. And it's very hard to get these things out of there. It's like in my mind, it always goes back to porn, right? Whatever I do, every time I come back to it. And it's very annoying. And now, the way I like to see it, when you are born as a child, then your mind is a bit like empty space. And you're this little pure white bulb of light, right? A light bulb. And then all these people come, you know, I see this a lot with children and it makes me really angry. You know, even fathers do it, mothers do it, grandmothers do it, grandfathers do it, random people on the streets do it. Like there's no respect for children in this system. To them, children are just like somebody that takes work of them. Nobody here really wants to keep children safe energetically. All they do is they just load all their bullshit onto them. Here, take this also, take this, and if the child starts speaking up, they say, you don't have rights here because you don't earn money. So that's the value of this society is you are as much worth as the money that you make. And it doesn't matter how much money actually is being used for creating a better life. It's just about the more money you make, the more rights you have. And if you make a lot of money, you can buy more people that get you what you want. So this system is being built on dishonesty and simply, I have more money, so I'm worth more than you. And people even say that, like they really think it is like this. So, you know, my brother thinks that because he got a credit from the bank and bought the house from my father, that this house belongs to him now. And he thinks that I have to do what he wants. And because I kind of have most of my shit together and I worked hard spiritually, I have outgrown him on many levels, like physical strength, my will, and just the air in which I move, right? You can see it, that I have worked on myself very hard, and that I'm very flexible also, and that actually nothing can break me. And so he thinks he's better than me because he has a house and a car and all these things, but these are just thoughts. He's actually afraid that I'm better than him. And the fact is, you may say I am. I'm better in a lot of ways. But I would be very bad at doing what he does. So there are certain things I simply cannot do. And that is like accepting money for something I don't believe in. Or making money with something I don't believe in. So in a sense, I have a lot of concepts in my mind as well, which is I'm 34, I should be earning a lot of money right now. Probably should have a family and children and stuff. But I'm still living with my parents. And now my father offered me in June to pay me a Shaolin temple retreat for 2 weeks. And I'm going to accept it. I've accepted it already at the age of 34. My father's going to pay that for me while I live here. And what I contribute is I hold the space. I stay at home and I hold the space. And to explain that to someone who doesn't believe in spirituality is very difficult. So if somebody would come now and ask me, well, explain what you're doing, right? Like, why do you think you're very important here right now? Well, I would have to go a very long way to explain to them what I'm doing here. Because to somebody who thinks that spirituality is just a bad joke and it's just like sitting around and only about quieting the mind and looking peaceful, I would have to explain to that person somehow that it's much more than this. That if I learn to quiet my mind, that suddenly all kinds of things start to happen. Like the whole aura of my presence starts to change. And energy starts to flow through my body in a completely different way. More like a stream than what most people have, this kind of complete chaos in themselves. So when you learn to do certain practices, and also sometimes when you take psychedelics, they simply quiet your mind, and then there's no thoughts anymore. So right now when I'm talking, I'm holding up the space of my mind. I'm holding up the space, and I'm not really thinking. I'm just looking for the direction. And sometimes I feel like a little stuck, but I'm not thinking about what to say. I'm just waiting till something else comes out. Sometimes actually while I'm talking, I have no idea what I say because I don't really cling to what I'm saying, if that makes any sense to you. Because I've started working on my mind, and that's a very complicated thing to do. It takes a lot of determination to cleanse your mind and to see where your mind is clinging to. And I haven't even scratched the surface of really deep meditation, right? I mean, I've sometimes meditated with psychedelics. I've sometimes meditated without them. But surely the deepest states of meditation I have experienced were with psychedelics. And now I'm trying also to do it without, but I also have to accept that there are certain boundaries. Because if you imagine you would have been born into a tribe, let's say, let's just stick with the nature that we still have. Let's say you would have been born into a tribe in the Amazonian rainforest. You would have been born into a society or into a community, because society is not the same thing as what they have. Because what they have is more like a community. It's really about communion, about being together and living together and realizing that everybody is needed. Nobody treats another person like they're obsolete. And that's how this society works. The people on top, they treat the people that they think are at the bottom like they're obsolete, right? So the people on top, they act like they're the ones that have something to give, but the only thing they have to give is what they took from the people that they're suppressing. And now you have people that let themselves be suppressed because they are afraid to die, or they're afraid just in general. And that allows this whole shit show to continue indefinitely, because we have people en masse that think they are worse than everybody else. Sometimes there's very kind people that have stuck to themselves this kind of idea that they're a piece of shit. And that's of course what they have been trained to believe, right? It's like every time as a child somebody pushed you to the side. No, it doesn't matter. You don't have to say pushed you physically to the side, but also emotionally. Every time you try to love someone, you were pushed aside. Leave me alone. Every time you had an opinion, you wanted to say something, or you wanted attention, and people told you, go to your room. Or in school, you wanted to show who you are, and your teacher said, sit down. You only speak when you're spoken to, right? So these are experiences that you could say create in your mind fissures. They crack open something. And in that settles the seed of I'm a piece of shit. And that seed starts to, in this kind of society, this kind of seed will be nourished, and they will feed it. It's like fertilizer from people that always give you the feeling that you're a piece of shit. But the truth is that the only reason they do that is because they think they're a piece of shit. And so they push it onto you and make you feel like you're a piece of shit, so that they don't have to feel like this. So it's like the people who are on top, yeah, it's just a metaphorical top. The top is non-existent in this. There's no real hierarchy. Because anybody who wants to think he's on top, you know, is just trying to escape from how terrible they feel. So anybody who wants to be super rich just for the sake of being rich, I mean, I can understand that somebody who wants to be rich because he really wants to give space back to the people. I mean, space where people can live freely without having to buy anything, where they can just go and they can just live there and it costs them nothing. You know, that's how many people are there that do this just for the sake of doing it and not because they want to get something out of it. But of course, this only works for a certain period of time. So I could imagine that somebody would, you know, somebody who has money would fund some sort of ashram where people can come once in a while. And you don't ask money, but you also only accept certain people and not all the time. And then they can live there and then they can cleanse. And when they're ready, they leave. But then they have to go back into the world. And then you would make sure to train them. You would make sure to train these people in the ways of the Force, and you would cleanse their minds, and you would cleanse their hearts. And then you would say, but you cannot stay here, all right? You have to go back, because that's the challenge. And when you came here, that was the challenge that you were given. That you have to learn to live with this kind of world. And the problem I see is that most people, they just want to escape this. But if everybody's trying to escape it, then who's going to bring back the message to the people, right? Who's going to do that? Who's going to be like Jake Sully, right? Who lives in between worlds. Who in his heart is always part of the Nari or something. So there have to be people like this who, so this is now herbs, right? Shouldn't be anything wrong with that. Or maybe I'll just leave that for later. So that people don't say I'm promoting anything. Sage. So some people have to live in this society and take responsibility for it. And so they say, all right, I will learn to live in peace in this society with people that are really toxic and with people that, you know, that are my family, that I grew up with, and I will learn to love them. And no matter what they do, I'm just going to continue loving them. And that's a challenge. Because they're going to test you. They're going to push you around. Some are even going to hit you. Because you have to understand, the place these people are in is a very bad place. And some of us, because I'm not the only one who's like I am, I just have a way of showing how I am. So some of us, and that's how my life also started, they take responsibility because they have a loving nature, so they always take the blame for everything. You know, they always are the ones that after a fight, they're the ones that go back to the person and they say, hey, it's alright, you know, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. You know, that's like having a loving nature, because you don't want fight between people. But now what I've learned is that, and this is about people getting into your mind. People getting into your mind. And they get into your mind and they say, what are you doing? So what's the difference about watching a movie and seeing people smoke cannabis on there, or smoking cigarettes for commercials? And what's the difference when somebody is doing a live stream and smokes a herb cigarette? Is that really bad? I'm not so sure. But I've just opened a space and I feel like I'm holding back on behalf of fear. And that's a very stupid thing. You know, I'm often afraid I'm jeopardizing my mission. So the thing is, I don't live in the forest. I live in a very stressful environment. There's like Wi-Fi, there's electricity. This environment is very toxic. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of stench. So emotions from other people, I inhale them, right? When I go into the rooms here, I inhale stuff from other people. And that's then in my lungs. And that makes the air really heavy to breathe. When you're in a forest, there's a very different kind of air to it. You don't have to say like it's not better or worse, but here the air becomes very stale very quickly because it doesn't move. So when I do this, I inhale and the smoke cleanses my lungs also. That's why I use sage. It's like a smudge stick. I had white sage before. And I smoked white sage. And now this is just sage, right? I mean, you may sprinkle something in there. You know, some people even use mushrooms. Some people use cannabis. But the basis is sage. Some people use oregano, but I like sage. Because there's a lot of toxic emotions and energy also in my lungs. A lot of people have lung cancer. And so we have to do certain things to cleanse that. And I feel much lighter now. And what I do is I inhale that into my lungs and then I press out. And sometimes I even get really dizzy from doing that. This is sage now. But I feel when I do this, suddenly there's like, I don't know, stuff is flowing differently. And sometimes my mind is really clogged. It's like a dark place. And I feel like if I would do breathing exercises regularly, I wouldn't have that problem. But now comes the problem of attachment. Because what we get attached to is actually feelings. So when you were brought up in this kind of system, you got attached to being treated like a piece of shit. And in your mind, you're always trying to recreate this feeling because you think you deserve to be treated like this. So you want to feel ashamed, because I've been shamed as a child many times by people who, like just random strangers that that thought it felt good for them because I had short hair. It's like bristles, right? And they would come and touch my head. That's actually shame, because they use me to make themselves feel better. And I've seen fathers that go around and they're like, and they feel really bad. And they go to their child and, people always kiss children. It's disgusting. You don't have to kiss children. Kissing is for a mother and a child maybe, but I would say that kissing is actually for husband and wife to connect with each other. I don't know. I don't know what kissing is really about. I saw that people used to kiss their child when feeding, right? It's like you eat food, you chew it with your mouth, and then you give it to your child. So you don't have to use spoons and stuff. It's a very direct connection. Because people didn't have food processors. But if you go around in this kind of society where everybody thinks they're better than everyone else, because now we got tables and we got spoons and we got, it makes us feel superior. This is in your mind. You feel superior. You think you are superior. But the reason you have to feel superior is because you're afraid. You're not. So you're building on shit. Your whole idea of who you are is just built on shit. The idea you have to be better than others, that's always the boundary I reach with people. When I go to them and I try to be with them, and when I open up to them and I speak to them about anything, that's when they start blocking me out, because they feel intimidated by what I say. And then they start reading a lot of stuff, because they also want to be smart. But the thing is, I don't read anything. I don't really ever read anything. I just open my mouth and words come out. And then some people may think that's very smart, but I also have to live what I'm saying. Otherwise it's pointless, and a lot of people, they just say things, they don't live them. So you can read a book about spirituality and then you can just repeat what others have said. And you can even write your own book if you've read a lot of books. You can write a book from that, but it's going to be empty in terms of meaning, which means it's just more of the same. It's not uniquely you. And that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people are actually really stupid. They just read a lot of things, but they're actually really stupid. Like, I meet a lot of people who are really stupid. Like really, really stupid. Like really stupid. But they are just good at repeating things. But the way they live their lives just shows how stupid they are. Because they grew up in the same world that I grew up in. But they still go and get drunk at an advanced age. Or they miss getting drunk. Whereas I understood that getting drunk is just really stupid. Right? It doesn't make me better, but just for myself, right? I just feel like I don't want to do it anymore. So I just stop spending time with people who like to do that. And this is how you start detaching yourself from all kinds of things, and you learn to be alone much better. And you see your mind more like a garden. So, for example, I'm still clinging to watching certain things on the internet, because the internet is just full with things. And so sometimes I think I have to read stuff. Yeah, also that actually. Because sometimes I do read things, but not a lot. Yeah, I just really mean that. Whether you believe it or not, I don't really care. I like to read. When I read, I try to read only bits and pieces, but everything I want to know actually also is already in myself. I don't have to read anything. And that's the truth. It really is. So what I can do is, this is really relaxing. Maybe not in the beginning, but I really started to feel like this is really relaxing. Like, this is a very nice position to rest in. But for that you also have to train your arms a lot, just to hold this. And it's also very nice, like, the longer you can hold it, like, this is easier to hold than to do a plank, for instance. It's also good for your shoulders. Wow. It's just like... So the way I have worked with my mind is you simply have to observe everything that's going on. I mean, there's a lot of shit in your mind. Even words like shit, you can try to get rid of them. And there are words that I've got rid of. I was so sick of saying them. But that's how things wiggle themselves into your mind, so people can even plant thoughts in your mind. If somebody constantly tells you you're disgusting or you're sick, I think this is what Ren has been through. People that come and they say you're sick, and then you either start believing them or you say I'm not sick. But then the problem is if they really want you to be sick, how do you escape from that? It's very difficult. Because once the system thinks you're sick, then how do you get away from that? Because every time you say something, they're just going to say, you're sick. So what you can do is, you simply say nothing, but you certainly have to hold your ground. And you have to pay attention to what they're trying to do. It's like a mother that wants to smother you, and that just can't let you go as her son or something. And then she constantly comes and wants to give you things and strokes your hair or treats you like a little baby. You know, the only way to stop that is to tell her, stop doing this. I don't want you to touch me anymore. You know, sometimes you have to get a little angry with people. But the problem is when you shout, you've lost. So when people come and they start to play minds on your game, right? Play games on your mind, and they try to hook you into thinking you're sick or you're bad or you're evil. You have to remain calm, man. It's like there was a situation when I was in Amsterdam, and I'm just going to say it as it is. I had taken psychedelic mushrooms and I had smoked cannabis, but I was completely in charge of what was happening. But I did end up trapped in some kind of, yeah, it was like a place where you could go into some kind of yard, and from the street to the yard there was like a tunnel, and in the tunnel there were bookshelves, and on these, yeah, and there was light in the tunnel, and there was also a like fence, so you could completely close the tunnel so that nobody could come in. But when I saw it, it was open, and I walked in, and I walked through the tunnel, and there were two people looking at books, and I walked through the tunnel, and I walked into the yard, and it was like a quiet space, right? It was dark, and there were trees, but from there you couldn't leave because it was like a building complex, so it was like a private yard. Anyway, I'm just going to continue. It doesn't matter if you understand what I mean or not. And so I sat there for a while just to relax from this hectic Amsterdam. And then I wanted to go out, and I realized they had locked the tunnel and the people were gone. So now I was trapped in that place. It was open from both sides because it was a tunnel. And what separated me from getting out of there was this like bars, right? It's like I was really in prison. So there were bars, and some of the bars were like a door, and they had locked it, and I couldn't get out. It was raining, and so I said, yeah, I'm just gonna stay here. And so I just stayed there, and I just tried to keep warm, and then I pulled my hands into my jacket, and I just stayed there, and I had no idea what was happening. I just remained calm. I just said, I'm just gonna wait here. There actually came a woman, and she said she could help me, but I said, I don't want it. I'm just gonna stay here. I don't know why. I just wanted to stay there. Maybe I was waiting for something, right? And so I just spent some time there, and I tried to stay warm and keep my thoughts warm, right? This is how you keep your mind clean also from fear, by always looking for the light. Okay, what's the positive side of my situation, right? This is how I do it. You know, something looks very negative, and you turn it around, suddenly, oh wow, there's a lesson to be learned here. You know, I'm just gonna stay put. I'm just gonna see what happens. You know, I actually thought somebody would come and offer me a coffee and then say, hey, you can come inside. And of course, I thought this would be a very beautiful woman. And then we would fall in love with each other and she would support me in earning money with what I love. And that's what I thought. That's actually the reason why I stayed there. Yeah. Yeah, it turned out a little different. The police came and apparently the people who lived next to that tunnel, they had heard me. They were old people and they were really afraid. So instead of asking me what I was doing there, they just called the police, and then the police came and they couldn't get in through the bars because they were locked. And then they asked me for my identity and I said, I don't have one. And I said, if you ask me like this, I don't want to give it to you. And I spoke English, so they thought I was American. Maybe also the beard. And my arms were still inside my jacket, so they couldn't see them. And then what happened at the same time while these two people were keeping me in a conversation was that 4 other police officers were walking through the apartment of the old people that called the police. Of course, I didn't know that. And they were coming in on the back, so they were trapping me in the tunnel. And they were coming, and then they had their hands on their guns and stuff. What are you doing here? You know, all the time I was there, they just tried to make me look like I did something wrong, right? But I knew I had done nothing because, you know, you could say I was the victim, but I was just trapped in that place. And they never asked me. They just came there and they assumed I was the one who did something bad. You know, I was the one who broke the law and who wasn't supposed to be there. They never asked me, hey, how are you doing? Like, what are you... They could have started the conversation like this, but they came there and they wanted me, you know, they probably wanted some action. I don't know. You know, police officers are probably also some kind of adrenaline junkies that want to feel powerful by suppressing others. And what happened then, because they have guns and stuff, right? It's just an expression of fear, of course. If you have a gun, if you need a gun to feel safe, it's an expression of fear. So already the fact that we have police is an expression of fear. Anyway, so they really wanted me to be at fault. And it took me, like, I just kept saying, I mean, you're trying to make me look like somebody that I'm not. And then they also said, what do you have, you know, in your hands? Show us your hands. And I said, I have nothing, you know, I'm not gonna do shit now. And so they came and then they opened my jacket and then I showed them my hands and there was nothing. And then they started to relax a little and they realized, oh wow, maybe these old people overreacted a little, and we came here and blamed him for nothing. We could have just asked him, and I said that nobody of you ever asked me. None of you asked me once. Maybe I said it, I don't know. I think it was clear. So actually they were the ones who misbehaved and not me, because I was just there. I just happened to be there. And then this one guy who asked me for my identity in the beginning, you know, so they wrote me a ticket for 90 euros because they said, yeah, if we ask you for your identity, you have to give it. Yeah. But I still did nothing. I showed no signs of violence or aggression. I just stood there and I held my ground while they were trying to make me look like I was doing really bad. Yeah, and then they put on handcuffs and they walked me out of this place through the apartment of the old people who were like this. Oh my God, finally it's gone. You know, they could have asked me, what are you doing here? And then I could have explained it to them. They could have said, oh wow, you know, have a coffee. But that's not the way it happened anyway. And then they put me on the street, and then they took off the handcuffs and they said, cheers. And that's all they did. But they really wanted me to be at fault. And I've had that a lot. I've had that in relationships all my life. I've had that with a lot of people that just wanted me. They just wanted to blame me for everything that happened in their lives. And it's very annoying. I mean, annoying because they try to twist your mind until you actually believe that you are the bad one. And they twist it and they twist it and they twist it. And it takes you a lot of effort to remember, because you have to understand these people are insane with fear. I mean, police officers, they live in fear. Politicians live in fear. So you were raised in a system that is built on fear. Because how did it start? People started to build walls around their places to keep out strangers because they were afraid of being mugged. And maybe it was necessary at that time, right? Maybe it was necessary at that time. But also kind of times of change, right? Maybe there were times like Dark Ages where everything is just a little darker, right? It's like the sinus wave, right? It's like dark, and then the middle, and then light. But I think it's just, I mean, there've always been people, even when times seemed very dark and gloomy, that know how to see the light. So I don't buy this kind of the Dark Ages, because they were dark for some people, but to others they were just whatever was happening. And I would say it's a practice to cleanse your mind from all these thoughts of fear and to start watering ideas and concepts that are a bit more lightful. But mostly it's just about having in your mind a very quiet space. Now, and to get there, that's a bit more difficult. So the mind, I would just accept that it exists. There's no real use to me to understand what the mind is or what I am. Because I am basically whatever I fill myself with and what I identify with. And what I choose, that's what I am, right? My choices show who I truly am. Our actions show who we are. And I might think that I'm really bad, but every time I choose, I actually choose something nice. But nice for who, right? You know, some people, they always please others, and then they neglect themselves. So the thing is, what I do is I simply accept that whatever the mind is, it exists. And when my mind is dirty, then I also have dirty thoughts. And then also my room looks dirty. And then I also like my room to be dirty. I've had times where I loved it, how dirty my room was. And now I want it to be clean. And that takes effort. But I first started cleaning my mind. So everything's connected, and that's the really complicated thing. You know, if you have a lot of things in your room that remind you of who you used to be, you know, pictures and images and, you know, written stuff and objects in general, And if it's not just having these things, but also hanging on to them, of having them, then you're kind of trapped in the past. And I once made a large fire and I just burned everything that reminded me of certain things, just to let go of it. And so what I did to cleanse my mind is just everything I did until now. And all of this stuff is, of course, in my content. So to repeat that now is just way too much effort, because I've created all of this content for a reason, so that people can live with that and work with that. Because what point would it be now to keep talking about it? Because I've already done this. I mean, I've already done all of this. That's what you have to understand. The reason I can create so much content is because I'm very old. And you may think, but you're only 34. Yeah, but I've died 1,000,000 times while you were playing computer games, while you were, I don't know, eating pizza and playing with friends, while you were watching movies. I've done my homework. I've died 1,000,000 times. If you know what I mean, then you know it. I've gone to the edge and I've returned. I've died and I came back to life. I was on the verge of suicide and then I came back. I've done my homework. I know why I wanted to live. And then I pushed through. Not many people do this like that, to work with fear in such a way. So what else can I say at this point than, if you want to know what I have to say, then read my books. Read my books. That's the best advice I can give you. Or listen to my podcast. Because, I'm talking to you from a place that's different than where you are. Where you are, there I have been. And because I've been there, I can tell you everything that I wrote down in my books is what helped me to get here. But I can also tell you, you don't have to listen to anything that I say. You don't have to read my books. You don't have to watch my content. You can do this yourself. Now the question is whether you want to, or whether you trust enough to do that, because it did take me a lot of trust and a lot of faith. And the reason also I could do it was because I did have a father that financially supported me through all of this. So you have to look at your life and then ask yourself, do I have the time and the space to simply do that? Or am I just going to read somebody's book and see if that's going to help me? I cannot tell you, because not everyone has the connection. Yeah, not everybody has the same connections. My job in this life seems to be to do what I'm doing. And I'm doing it no matter what happens on the outside. I always go back into myself and back to my mission. That's what I seem to be good at, to present what I have found in an artistic way, to express it in an easy way. Now, that's basically it. I really want to eat something, but I just, at this moment, I don't really know what. I wanted to make potato soup. I wanted to make all kinds of things. But sometimes I just want to eat something fast. I know I want to eat something, but sometimes I really don't know what. I don't know why am I even still eating. Because it's hard work to do this kind of stuff. To channel energy, your body needs a lot of food, I feel like. And I think I just found something. So I don't know if you still have time, but I'm gonna eat now. And I'm going to get chickpeas just out of a can. I'm just going to put some oil on top, a bit of salt, no garlic, but that's just what I'm gonna eat. And then I'm gonna see what else I'm gonna have with that. So just maybe grate some carrots, put olive oil on top, or eat some olives, I don't know. Just a second. the way I've just talked now, it's not really who I am, actually, to be honest. And sometimes I just try to be a little bit more mellow, so that people don't get so intimidated. But it's just really boring. I'm not like this. So this is 1 can of chickpeas. I added turmeric. I added cumin. Now this is how some people that smoke all the time, they just always want to be mellow, like cool. You know, I don't give a crap. What does it mean to be cool? It's like emotionless. So I just want my mind to be in a certain way that doesn't annoy me all the time. So I had to learn to push out certain thoughts. I had to learn to understand how certain foods make me feel. You know, how does sugar make you feel? Coffee. So I started to experiment. And I realized certain foods make you feel different. And I experimented a lot with that. And I realized, yeah, sugar makes people feel like they're really powerful. And so does coffee. And so does cocaine. And also alcohol. All psychedelics. You know, they rile you up and they really give you the feeling you're like super strong. But you're not. Because the fact that you need this, to make yourself feel strong, because every time you feel weak, you eat sugar, right? Every time you feel weak, you masturbate. And I'm in the same position. And then for a little while, you feel a little bit stronger. And this is all like habits and stuff. So you've got a habit, and that habit is rooted on an emotion, or maybe on something, an experience or whatever. So you see it's all connected. So you want to change your diet, but it takes a while to go from I'm sugar addicted and I'm watching porn and I'm watching movies all the time and I'm addicted to sex and to all kinds of things. You have to work a lot with your mind to realize how your mind is working, how it's clinging. So everything is connected. And that makes it really hard. And that also means you have to literally change everything. You have to take everything apart in your life. And that starts with your childhood. Everything you know about yourself is probably bullshit. So you have to cleanse. You know, I wanted to do a lot of things in my life. But these things weren't really me. You know, do I like running? Do I like going running? I got to the point where I said I actually hate running. You know, occasionally I would like to go for a run, but it's not really what I want to do. You know, I run inside myself at an insane pace. But if people would see that, you know, they would just see me sitting around. But inside of myself, I'm overcoming one emotional hurdle after another. I'm looking at childhood trauma. I'm looking at, you know, what are we doing as a society, as humans, to the planet. You know, I'm looking at so many things. Because when you learn to, you know, you cleanse your mind, you can zoom in and out of things. You know, I don't need a microscope. You know, I can zoom into trauma and I can zoom out of trauma. You know, you zoom into the trauma and you see the root of it, and you zoom out and you see the consequences that this trauma has brought. You know, I can take a problem with my mind and then solve it. Like I solved the Rubik's Cube. You know, I see the Rubik's Cube is then, yeah, you know, it's like this. And there's all kinds of problems. And I use my mind to look at the problem from all kinds of sides. And the way I do that is you have to sit in silence and listen to what the voice is trying to tell you. You really say, I want to hear this now. And when the voice is saying, I fucking hate you, then you say, who's talking? Or you say, wow, this is inside of me. But who's saying that? And you don't have to sit. You don't even have to squat. You can just lie down. Put a blanket over you. And just focus on whatever there is. No music. No phone. No nothing. You just sit down, you listen. This is what I do all the time. If I start to feel restless, I realize there's something I need to do. So I start feeling restless, and then I quiet down. Often I look like this. Without the hands, I just look like this, or maybe like this, or maybe like this. And then I'm listening, and then the voice says, go eat chickpeas. It's just translating the feeling that I have. But to get to the point where you sit there and you quiet down and the voice says, go eat chickpeas, and you actually just get up and do it, do you know how much work that takes? Because you're going to say, I don't want to eat chickpeas. You know, I rather want to eat nothing, or I want to eat something else. So everything that I've been doing until now, I've been doing it because of a voice that's been talking to me. You know, when I started and I said, what do I want to do in life? A voice came and said, write a book about fear. Why else would I write a book about fear? Like, I asked into myself, what do I want? And then I went looking for an answer. And then the voice came and said, write a book about fear, but who's the voice? I don't know. But it's that which is driving me mad sometimes also. Because there are so many other voices. And then you have to learn to, because I go by feeling. That voice sounds a bit like a snake or something. Sometimes I've been talking to people and they were talking to me. And they were talking like a snake. They were changing the reality of things with their words. And then when I caught them at it, this can be a little bit scary, but you have to ask yourself, who's doing this? And what is beneath this here? You know, why does somebody have the reason or a reason to lie? And what is lying? Because I have come across things in books that were written by Hildegard von Bingen, where she says that there's like worms in your teeth. But that's like on another level. You know, we say we have cavities. But what is it really? Because this is an energy body. This is not. Cavities come from the belief that this is all solid, but it's all energetic. And if there are energetic beings, you know, what do teeth stand for energetically and spiritually? And what is eating your teeth? So there are sometimes clues also how to catch people at lying. It's like the way they really look like. Some people just look dirty. People that scratch themselves a lot. People that like are really like shifty people that constantly move. When they talk, you see, for example, Bill Gates. He does a lot like this. It's a distraction. He distracts you with his hands movement, but it also shows that he's very nervous about what he says, because he always has to do like, yeah, and then he has to say a lot. Elon Musk does that. He really has to think about what to say, because he only wants to say what he thinks people want to hear. And he's willing to lie for that, of course. So, if you want to see the world only like this is all material, then I can't really help you. Because you have to look deeper than that. And I found things that really scared the shit out of me. And not only on psychedelics, also without. That just kept going. So I know there are forms of energy that can come into your mind. So I've been having a dream as a child where I was falling into water. I fell in the water. And then at one point the dream ended. And the interesting thing is that I always thought that I was drowning when I fell into water. And the way I explained it to myself was I always woke up, I thought it was a nightmare. And I woke up and I felt like, oh, this was such a bad dream, and I was often afraid of water. And I was in one ayahuasca ceremony, and then a voice came and said, a snake was whispering into your ear and turned the dream into a nightmare. So now people would come and say, well, that was just a hallucination. But the truth is that whatever the voice is, it helped me. Like whatever the voice is that I've been listening to, it helped me to feel more at peace and more balanced. Because it told me to write books. It told me to write a book about the language of emotions. It told me to do lots of things, which I have just done. And I'm still here. But at one point I also had to become a little bit careful. Not like in the sense I'm really afraid, but, you know, because you realize there are consequences. When I do certain things, there are consequences. So the more you become aware of the consequences of your actions, what it really means to lie. When you're telling a lie, you're actually renouncing yourself. And that holds a lot of weight. And it creates a lot of imbalance in your life. So when you're lying about how you feel, then you're running away from the consequences of your actions, because you're responsible for the way you feel. So when you want to talk about the mind, you cannot simply say that's your brain and there's thoughts and stuff, because it's way more than that. This is an entire universe inside of this thing. When I close my eyes and I simply look into the space that is there, all kinds of things, in the dark it's much more pronounced. But I see images, I see things. Sometimes I think, what am I seeing there? Because sometimes I really see whole scenarios. What do you think inspires my art? It's coming from somewhere. I can't tell you from where, but it's just there. All I'm doing is I'm showing it. So you want to say the mind is just a brain. It's like Reusch said, that science simply assumes certain things and then takes them for granted. It's like they assume that memories are stored in the brain. But he says, how do you know that? So he came up with the morphogenetic field, which is basically like a space, or like a, maybe we call it a bubble, an energy bubble that grows the more people connect with it. And that connects So he tested that. So there were rats and they were trained in one lab to solve a maze. And then the different rats somewhere else on the planet were trained to solve the maze as well after that. And then after that, they did it in a different lab, but the same maze. And what they realized is that each time they did it, they learned it a little faster. And he explained that with the morphogenetic field, that if one rat learns something, the next rat will have it easier to learn it as well. And I think that's true. But the way I see it, I first, the way I work, I have the feeling I first have to see it. Of course, these rats were being taught to do it. So if somebody would have never seen the Rubik's Cube, and I would go and teach them, maybe because they know it's possible to solve it, right? Now they just have to believe it, because that's the difference between humans. I don't like the term animals, but there's different beings. And let's stick with the term humans. But I feel like humans really have to believe that they can do something. So you can believe, oh, I can do this, but you can also believe I'm a piece of shit. And when you're busy believing I'm a piece of shit, it's very hard to believe that you can trust. Because who are you to say that if you're a piece of shit, right? And so what also connects to the whole principle is you are what you eat. So, I try to stay away a lot from meat. Because I don't want to eat meat. Because it carries a lot of emotional, energetic weight. To eat slaughtered animals that have been raised in such a way, I'm not sure if I would be in the Amazon rainforest and they would hunt monkeys or birds. I'm often asking myself that. If I would eat this, I think I wouldn't. Because I'm not like them. In that sense, right? They live the way they live. If I would travel the world, and maybe I would be invited by cannibalists, I would never eat human. Because I would be very ignorant, because I know that it has consequences. And if I eat another human, I take up his karma. That's insane. I don't want that. And one way that also helped me to cleanse the mind was to stop touching people all the time. And to stop hugging them. I don't know how bad it is, but I want to know who I am in all of this. And if I run around and I hug and touch people all the time, then how can I hold my own weight? How can I know who I am if I'm constantly running to other people? Because there's people that are really dying to hug someone. They go to parties and they're already looking forward to hugging each other. To me, that's insane, because they don't know who they are. Because if they knew, they wouldn't have to hug anyone. There's that tradition from India where you say namaste, right? It's like, I see you as the spirit that you are. I see beyond the flesh. And I acknowledge that we are the same in your soul, right? That's how you connect with people, by connecting with the spirit, instead of only connecting like by touching hands. I could connect to you better through the camera than most people will be able to connect to you with a handshake. And that to some people I think is very scary. So yeah, yesterday I felt very bad and I realized I have to clean my room. So the room represents you. If your room is very dirty and full of stuff. So like I said, it's all connected. When you clean the outside, it also helps you to feel more at peace on the inside. And then you can look into things like Feng Shui, right? I mean, this is a whole playground that opens up inside your mind. Because when you realize, it's like some people that are being imprisoned, right? And they say, You hear that from people in prison a lot. Like, you think you're free. You know, I'm more free in my prison cell than you are doing what you do. It's just that most people who are not in prison, they think they're better off than the people in prison. And of course, they also want to show, you know, how bad prisons are. And maybe they are, I don't know. I've never been in one, really. I mean, I have been in one in my mind. And I worked myself out of that. So just imagine we as humans would learn to just stay warm in winter without heating. How strong that would make you. Because now we have heaters, yeah, and we turn them on and they keep the air warm. It also means I start feeling cold because I actually don't know what to do to keep warm. It's actually, you have to keep moving, right? I mean, if you want your body to be warm, then you probably have to eat certain things, and at the same time you have to move in certain ways so that the energy keeps flowing. You know, Tumo is like an active meditation practice that allows you to channel, you know, to create heat from within. And you can, like, melt snow with that heat. It's like what Wim Hof talks about. But there's more to it. Like, you can really create a lot of body heat. You don't have to eat for that. That works with the breath. But for that, you first also have to rid your mind of all these ideas. You know, how much food you need. And usually the way that works is with experience. So I have already fasted, but so I know I don't need as much food. Mostly what I'm eating is actually emotional eating. I feel fear, but I still want to go through it, so I eat something that helps me. I don't just eat only for pleasure. I eat to make what I have to do a bit easier. And you can call that cheating if you like. Eating is cheating. Because what strengthens your trust is knowing that you need very little to survive. Basically nothing. And so if you want to strengthen your will, if you want to strengthen your will, what do you do? Yeah, I don't want to solve that now. You make experiences that show you what you can do. And then you just do the things that you wanted to do. So you teach yourself new things. I don't know, teach yourself an instrument. Or teach yourself how to write books. Or teach yourself hiking, you know, go more hiking. Learn to trust your intuition. And start listening, that's the most important thing. Start listening to what that voice inside of you is trying to tell you. And then you take responsibility for the fact that you have ignored it for such a long time. You know, I'm still ignoring it often. Quite often, the voice comes and I just do something else anyway. But sometimes I do it because I realize I feel too weak at the moment. Sometimes I have to give myself something first in order to progress. So it's not just about, yeah, I will never eat sugar anymore, and I will never watch porn again, I will never masturbate again. It's about making experiences that allow your mind, you know, I'm just going to talk about it like this, you know, it doesn't matter how you talk about it, to allow your mind to understand that you don't actually need porn. And for that you start making experiences. So you first maybe manage 1 week without it. And then you realize, oh wow, I actually don't need it. And then suddenly you need it again. So you work with transitions, right? And then maybe for 3 months, you're so busy with other things, you can't think about not watching porn. So you just keep watching it. Because in a way also watching porn is a method that just keeps you going, right? It's like 5 seconds of bliss. But at a certain point, the cost of watching porn becomes too great for you to accept its consequences. Because you realize now you have been purifying yourself a lot. You know, physically, emotionally, you've done a lot of cleansing. And you realize every time you watch porn, you feel dirty again. And you think, I don't want to feel dirty no more. And so you make other choices. I mean, it's that simple. So you simply have to take full responsibility for how you feel and what kind of thoughts you have. If you have violent thoughts or a lot of sexual thoughts with all kinds of people, dark thoughts, dirty thoughts, and you make, you know, sexual jokes all the time, then that means your mind is very dirty. And then you either say, okay, I'm going to leave it like this because my father's been like this and other people are like that. Well, then that's your choice. But I knew I can do better. And I hated it. I hated these stupid sex jokes. I hated it that, you know, people around me were just farting all the time. Because why do I have to be something that I'm not? You know, why do I have to go around and fart like really loud? Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to get attention in such a way? Like, why do I have to film myself having sex? It's like I said already, it's like filming yourself taking a shit. It's just something anyone can do. No matter how you do it, anyone can have sex. Anyone can take a shit. Anyone can eat. But if you want to have sex in the right way, you have to practice a lot to understand what sex is, what does it even mean, like what's the purpose of sex. It's actually spiritual enlightenment and spiritual union with another person. You can do that alone, just by meditating, but some of us want to do it with a partner and have a family. And that's how I see myself. Yeah, I'm still looking. You know, I thought for some time, I had already found someone, but I think I was just lying to myself. You know, that happens. Sometimes you're so convinced, you know, somebody is something for you, and then you realize that person was just phony again. and I was too eager to believe that they were something, because I was happy I had found. So this is a bit like how it's also going for me, right? One day I feel good and I think, now I have it. And the next day, it's gone again. And then you have to ask yourself, what happened? What choices did I make? But sometimes it's not the choices that you made. It's just something you have to go through. It's like Ramdas says it, I don't care what I'm heavy about. As soon as the heaviness starts, I start with my method. So my method is being creative. But my method is also food. My method is sometimes sleeping. It's like contemplation. You know, my method is all kinds of things. So right now, I don't know, right? I just ate a whole can of chickpeas. You would think that's enough. But a part of me just wants to keep eating. Yeah, I don't know, am I supposed to do that? Who's to say, right? I just see myself eating all these things like, But that also comes with a cost. If you eat a lot, your body is constantly busy digesting food. And that means everything else will become much more heavy. You know, if I'm constantly full with food, then doing yoga, you know, or such things, and holding that for 10 minutes, which shouldn't be a problem. So hold this position for 10 minutes. But after 2 minutes, I start getting tired. And one reason I start getting tired is because I'm too hooked on food for strength. But if I have something, I always take something. No strength ever comes out of me. You know, I feel a certain way, I eat something. I drink something. I turn on the heater. I watch porn. I cuddle with another person. I meet friends. You know, I call someone. I put on a thicker jacket. You know, all the strength that we have in this society is coming to us through tools, through using things to make us feel different. And now if you see those monks somewhere up in the Himalayas, they just wear like a robe and it's cold. So their strength comes from within. They don't eat much. They're silent most of the time. The way they work, it's like a spiritual practice. What does that mean? It means if your spirit is happy, it's because your mind is calm. And that means that when you sit here and you do this, the sound is reverberating through you. And there's no judgment as to how the object looks that you have in your hand. All you do is you're focused entirely, and that fills you up completely. It's like what? It's not Stifler, it's the other guy. Finch. From American Pie. You know, he's in the second one, where he's in that, you know, where they go to this beach house, and then Stifler invites all these people, and then suddenly, you know, Finch arrives. And he's doing this tantra stuff, where you just pile up energy, and whatever you do feels orgasmic. So you're constantly on the verge of climaxing. I mean, that's a very vulnerable state to be in. but it's starting to sound very appealing to me right now. Because I have gotten to that state. I mean, a couple of days ago, I actually managed for, I think it was a week, to not masturbate and to not watch porn. And I had evenings where I would just lie down flat on my mattress, cover myself with a blanket, and then I would hold my hands, only hold them, at my scrotum, and here maybe underneath my navel. And I would get an erection, and I would feel like, this was orgasmic, but not just for 5 seconds, not just for a minute. And this was getting heavier, like, and I felt like I had kind of an orgasm for 10 minutes without rubbing anything, just by holding my hands on top and not masturbating for 1 week. So that's how your energetic potential. But what I learned is it's very scary. It's very scary. Because if you have no balance, then this is just going to make you really angry, right? And that's why people in prison, they train a lot. But I don't just want to put on muscle, right? I don't have pull-up bars here, I don't have weights. So all I have is my body, and that's the essence of yoga. To find balance in yourself and to train with nothing but your body. And you realize that your body has a lot of weight. Maybe doing 1 push-up or doing this for some minutes isn't that hard, but to do it for, I don't know, half an hour, that's a challenge. So I've been training to do these things so that my body actually becomes lighter. And it works. That's all I can say, right? It worked. But I also realized that there are certain limits that I'm still working on. And that's why I keep squatting. I keep squatting and I keep doing these things. Sometimes I also need a break for whatever reason. Sometimes I just need a break, and that's why I felt like it was too much. So I masturbated again. But now I'm trying to stop again. Or I just stopped. That's just how it happens. At one point I just stop. And then I see how far I get. Because now I know how it's like up there. Because if you don't know how to channel this kind of energy, then you're going to be really agitated really easily. And that's why some people, including me, we eat a lot. Because it makes you heavy and it actually restricts the flow of energy. And then you feel tired and you sleep. So it's an escape. Eating is an escape. And so is doing all kinds of things. Anyway, I'm just checking. Because now I feel like I have to ask myself what I'm going to do next. So what you can do to start, now I don't know what your life looks like. But most people that I know, they drink a lot of coffee or energy drinks. So that's could be your first homework, right? If you want to accept it. Just simply try not to drink coffee for 1 week. You can extend it to 1 month if you feel like it's going well. But you can start with 1 week, no coffee and no energy drinks. And this is what I've been doing. So I know now how certain things make me feel. Which means I can be more conscious about making the choice of actually drinking a coffee, because I know what I want the coffee to do. I also know I could do that simply by doing breath work. That's transitions. You first have to understand how you can feel without the thing, and then you're probably gonna go back to it, because if you miss it too much and then your mind is really clinging, you just have to look at it again. That's how I feel like. I like to sometimes go back to places and then see, okay, how does it feel now? It's like going back to the city where you studied and then realizing, I've changed. It's not the same anymore. And that's what I have with porn. It's not the same anymore because I've looked at porn for such a long time. I know what it does. I know how bad it is. I've seen a lot of things in there. And then it just doesn't do it anymore. Because if you cannot lie to yourself anymore that it's what you want, then you simply let go of it. So right now, I don't know, right? I feel like I want to eat some kind of cake again. Because I feel hungry, but hungry for what? Actually, I just feel full. And maybe I should just enjoy eating still, but maybe it's also okay to just be a little bit hungry. That's what Steve Jobs apparently said. Stay hungry. That's what also Neem Karoli Baba, who was Ram Dass's guru, right? He said, if you have a desire, if you wait long enough, it will go away. But sometimes we like having desires. But that's also where a lot of problems come from. Because you can also replace, because the desire will, at some point, you found another way to satisfy it. Because you healed the wound that the desire spoke from. Right? So the desire to watch porn is actually the wound of separation. And the closest you can get to healing that is probably finding a woman that truly loves you, or a man that truly loves you, and then be in love together. Then you can heal the wound of separation. But that too probably only works for a while. But if you really devote yourself as man and woman to each other, then I would say it works, because then you made a conscious choice. We are going to be together to grow and to connect with spirit. We're going to teach our children what we've learned. To end this cycle of ignorance that humanity is trapped in. It's like, we've understood it. We understood life. But it's all just theories, man. It's all just theories from people that have never lived it. What's the point of understanding anything about the Big Bang? It's so far away. All I have to understand is the state of affairs right now. So I look at life and I realize it's shit. You know, the air is toxic, people are miserable, you know, everybody's a hack job because of modern medicine. You know, it's just being cut open and things are being replaced. And it's all just a money-making scheme. That's all I have to see. That we have understood nothing. And we know nothing. So all you can do is look at your life how it is right now. And then try to imagine how it could be. Or might have been. And then to realize I can change. And then you start changing. And that's a hard-earned lesson. Holy shit. You know, I had to get off my high horse. Because I realized I fucking hated it. I hated sitting on that horse and pretending like I was happy. So I rather said, you know, I hate this society. But I love life. And so I'd rather talk about things that help me to feel more alive so that other people can do it, so that we can stop buying all these things that nobody needs and consuming all these things that nobody needs. I mean, that's really what it is about for me. To simply be free. But also free from what? You know, I don't want to be toxic anymore. I just want to feel at peace. Inner peace is like when it's quiet. And when you have a lot of anger in yourself, that is far from being quiet. That's just emotions that need to be felt and heard and seen. And that simply is what took me 3 years of really hard work, of sorting out my entire life, all the people I had met, all the experiences. You know, I'm saying all, but you know, certainly a lot of them. You know, I've done nothing but looking, not looking at my hand. You know, I looked through my hand. What has this hand done? And how does it make me feel that I punched people with it? Or that I masturbated with it? You know, the shame was clinging to my hand. The shame of stealing, of being dishonest, right? If you carry these little sins that seem so negligible, they still shape you in ways that you will only understand if you go through what I've gone through, which is remorse and accepting and then letting go. To feel the shame of having been a real mean asshole. Yeah, to feel the shame of shaming others. And it doesn't matter if you were ignorant when you did these things, because now you know. And you have to make up for it. And that means you simply go through your shame, which means at the end of shame, there's just, that's what that was about. You know, sometimes I sit and I get a new idea, right? Because if you clean your mind, all kinds of new ideas come. It's like ideas for my content. Because I have a cleaner mind than I had before. You know, sometimes I don't know what to do, and then I sit down and I listen, and suddenly it's like, whoop, an idea comes up like a bubble. And it's like the idea of a song. You know, I've been working on these meditation, right? It's like obvious that that's what it means. But it's the Medi and then Tay and then Shun and Sion. It was a bit inspired by Zion because I was watching The Matrix. Meditation. I thought it was funny. It sounds more like a name, and people actually have to think about what does he mean with that, and then somebody comes and says, oh man, it's meditation, don't you get that? You know, it's the music, it's like reverberating, it's like, you know, it's always patterns, but also supposed to help you to let go. Because if you are very angry and there's a lot of chaos inside of you, you can just put on headphones and you listen to this and you close your eyes and you can even lie down and then you just let your mind wander. Because if it's really noisy and you, for example, you just try to stop watching porn and you go through this and it's like madness is like hammering you, like you just put that on and it's going to overwrite your thoughts, but in a peaceful way. And not in a, you know, when I was younger, I tried to I always listened to really aggressive music, like to really pound myself for the thoughts I was having. And now I realize actually what you need is just something like this, which keeps you busy. Because if it's just white noise, it's gonna get boring. But if it's like repetitive patterns, it's like, and then you know, that kind of music really quiets the mind. And you don't have to watch the video for that. I would have released it also on Bandcamp, but Bandcamp only allows files that are no larger than 290 something megabyte. Of course I could change it so that it fits on there, but I'm just gonna wait and then put it up on SoundCloud, I think. But that takes a while because you need a different account that you have to pay for so that you can upload other things onto SoundCloud. So yeah, and that's just how I see it. The mind wants to be cleansed. And then all kind of things connect with that. But it's the mirror, right? The mind is your mirror, and you look at it and you realize, I have a lot of dirty thoughts. My mind often goes to dark places. Well, then you have to look because these things are inside of you also. You know, if your mind keeps being drawn into darkness, then there are dark spots inside of you that you have to look at, and these things often are in your past. You know, I always said, if I look at my childhood, it's just like it's dark. It's not a very lightful childhood because I was being denied a lot of things. Things I had to do the way others wanted it. But that's just how it is, right? That's life. But just from the outside, you could say, well, you know, what were you missing? I mean, you had food, you had a room. Yeah, what I was missing was spirituality, was inner freedom, and also freedom of the people around me. So the only thing you can do is you can't go around and just blame it on your parents or something. So what you can do is simply accept that this is how your childhood was, and then look at it and go through it once more. And that takes a lot of time, and that's why not many people do it, because they're afraid of it. I simply looked at it. And then I tried to find also lightful moments. Yeah. Because when you heal your inner child, that's like a very important thing. Your inner child work. There are different ways of doing it. I don't do what some people do. You know, some people say you have to sit down and then you have a conversation with your inner child. You know, I did it sometimes, but usually I was being guided there. I don't really do a lot of things unless I really feel like it. Like, if the desire isn't really strong enough, I usually don't do it. So I've never sat down and, you know, some people say you can sit down and then on the other side of you, you just imagine like your 4-year-old child is sitting there and then you have a conversation with it. Maybe that's a very good way of doing it, I don't know. But the way I did it, I wait till the topic comes up, till the problem is so right in my face. So I work with problems and then I find solutions. So if I have a problem, then I look at the solution. So I also have to look at the root of the problem so that I understand what the solution would be. So I had to solve the problem, and that's of course the solution. So my problem is maybe I can't meditate because I'm too heavy. So the solution is to become more light and to quiet my mind. And I haven't really done a lot of sitting around and meditating like you would see it from people like monks, right? I don't really do that. You know, I watch a movie and I focus on how I feel about it. So what I do is I work with emotions. I only do what I feel like when I feel like it. If I don't feel like it, I may start, but then I stop again. Right? I started recording another audiobook from Howl's Moving Castle. And when I started, I just got so annoyed by it, I just had to stop. Because if it's not honest, yeah, it just seemed so pointless. It just seemed so pointless. Yeah, sure, maybe the book is nice, but what for am I going to read that? You know, I could do other things in that time. I could just sit here and talk about stuff that actually makes sense. Why is that? Because every time I started reading that book, my mind was being drawn to, I actually want to say something myself. Because I have something to say. You know, I don't need books. Because everything I need is already inside of me. Nobody needs Google. Nobody needs that. But that's been planted into people's minds. So every time they want to know something, they just look it up. Yet that makes your mind incredibly lazy. Because everything you want to know, you just look it up. But do you realize how many opinions there are on the internet? You know, one of them could be yours. That's what I started, right? I just put myself out there. Hundreds of hours on my podcast. You know, that's how I started engaging with myself. Just sharing everything. Putting it all out there, opening up. You know, let's say 50,000 people would listen to what I'm saying here. Maybe 2 would do it. Maybe 2 would be really serious about starting a podcast. So maybe you think, well, now he's telling people to start podcasts and to be creative. But you also have to understand that not everybody likes it. The reason why I'm doing these things is because it comes easy to me. I'm not doing it because I thought that that's gonna make me really, I don't know what. You know, I did it because I accepted that I have certain gifts, I have certain abilities, and I simply started to take responsibility for that. Such as the ability to find my own way. You know, even if my channel, which is likely to happen, would go through the wall and millions of people would watch my video, maybe 1% of these people would really understand what I'm talking about. So if you listen to this and you think you know what I'm talking about, and you think, well, now he's told everyone, you know, what's the point of doing it? It's just stupid, because if you know what I'm talking about, then start. Then start, and start going. Because most people that will listen to what I have to say, they will just be like, what is he trying to tell me? But everybody's watching it, so apparently it's smart, you know, it's good. But most people, they don't truly understand anything. Do you think from the 10 million people that watched, you know, High Ren from Ren, Do you think 10 million people watched it? No. It was probably at the most 2 million, from which 1 million watched the video 7 times or so. And there you go. There's probably people that watch this video 25 times, 50 times, that really love it. And then he has 10 million views. That's not 10 million people. Maybe that's 100,000. Right? Maybe that's, some people, they just follow him. It's like with my videos. There's 89 people that have subscribed to my channel. But the amount of time that they spend with my content is usually just a couple of seconds. They're not really interested. They just think, oh yeah, that looks kind of, maybe he's gonna be big on YouTube. But they don't really have the balls to really dive into this stuff. They don't want to understand it. They just think this is going to be another hype. So they can just piggyback on the hype and say, oh yeah, I followed him already before. I knew he was gonna be great. But that's, I'm aware of this, so I don't need people to comment on this. I don't need people to be in the chat room, because I know that the only people that would leave chat messages are people that feel lonely. And what have I got to give them? I already gave them what I wanted to give. I don't want to give them the opportunity to post their opinion under my content, because that's what separates me from other people. Is I just produced my own content, all of it. I got sick of copyright claims from using other people's music. So I just either stopped using music or I made my own. Because I got sick of these copyright claims, of thinking about, what kind of pictures to use. I just made my own pictures. So I just made being creative as easy as it is for me. But I also had to teach myself all of these things, to translate my emotions and my experiences into text. Everything that's inside of me, it's like, it's an insane way to attempt it. And I'm still not done. I'm still going, because there's more where that came from. But I also have to rest, because this is really hard work. This emotional weightlifting is really hard work. But that's my job, and that's every time I try to stop with it, I cannot, because I love it. I love to look into the darkness. I love to look at these things that scare other people. That's maybe what you could call, it's like the heritage of a shaman. And I'm not saying that because I want to be that. I say it because I had to acknowledge that this is what I am. And some people, they want to be that, and then they make a course, and then they say, I'm a shaman now. Yeah, sure. Life shows you if you are a shaman, not the certificate. All these certificates are so pointless. I'm a healer. I'm this, I'm that. Yeah, to me you look just like everybody else. Well, but I'm different. Yeah, alright. Yeah, then prove it. Prove that you're different. Because when you say you're different, or you're even thinking it, right? It's like my little brother. He thinks he's so special because he's afraid that he's not. But it's just a thought. He never does anything that's different from anybody else. Yeah, he has a drone at home, but he does nothing with it. He could make videos, but he doesn't. It's like a lot of people, they buy an action cam because they want action, but they're not willing to invest into having a life that is exciting, because they lack courage, because they're afraid of failing. Well, don't you think I was afraid of failing? I simply continued. And now I feel good about what I'm doing. I can just relax into it So I'm not that disappointed anymore if people don't really show up to these lectures, because I'm giving them anyway. And I realize also by now it's more about the space that I open and the kind of vibrations that I give up, right? So I just had to realize also, maybe I was scaring people a lot the way I was talking. Because people are very sensitive these days. It's like everything scares them. It's like you sit at night at the fireside and something cracks, you're like, what's this? It's like, chill man, it's a mouse. Yeah, I mean, that's where I also came from. But I worked with it. I looked at the things that scare me in my mind, and then, yes, sometimes I reshat my pants. Sometimes I had dreams that were scarier than anything I had ever experienced in my life. It's like the manifestation of fear suddenly knocks on your door while you're sleeping and you wake up like, ah! It's like the worst. But then you just look at the dream and you realize, wow, that was really scary. And the nature of my dreams also changed. But I'm not really, I like dreaming, I like having dreams. But I don't do lucid dreaming or something. But my dreams are lucid, if you want to call it that. But I also, I'm not, I don't really understand. Some people, they dream, and then they want to be conscious while dreaming so that they can fly or have sex in their dreams. I don't really see the point in that. Because why do I need to feel free inside of my dream? Because my dream gives me visions. If I'm controlling that, to me that sounds a little bit stupid. So I rather want to be free here than in my dreams. So I just let my dreams be whatever my dreams are, and then I wake up and then I think about, what did that dream show me? Because then it's still this kind of excitement of the unexpected. Sometimes I dream, sometimes I don't dream. Sometimes I remember the dream, sometimes I don't remember the dream. Right? I still have no idea where I go when I sleep. Yeah, I probably leave my body. But you see, that's just how I like to do it. I like to let my mind wander. And that's how I let it be free. I don't really control it. So I just, you quiet down. And I haven't always been like this. Like, I had a lot of thoughts always. But recently, because I'm doing what I came here to do, and when you follow your purpose, things start to change. And then you start to quiet down. Because when I sit here and I talk, I feel different. When I turn off the camera, which I'm about to do, then what happens is I feel restless. I'm like, okay, what to do next? So having the camera gives me stability because I have something to engage with. But when the camera is like the phone, right? It makes you feel safe. But if I turn that off, then what? So I do something else. I just keep myself busy. Because it's not just the camera, it's just the fact that I'm doing something other than just watching movies. If I'm not doing that, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do crochet, or I'm going to paint more things. I'm going to make music. I'm going to take pictures or record something. Or I'm going to do laundry, right? Or eat. Or sleep. Or rest. There's a difference for me between sleeping and resting. Sometimes I just want to rest. Yeah. So this is roughly what I had to say about the mind. And to me, the importance of letting or allowing the mind to wander. And for that, you have to free yourself of all these thoughts that you've been given all your life. Just sort them out. And often we have to look at them one more time. And just see it as something. Yeah, it's like bringing out the trash, right? Cheers.